this is the United States still. So the only solution is to nip this in the bud while we still can. And I'd just like to close to remind everyone that the only thing that evil needs to triumph is that good people should look on in silence. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to approval of the meeting agenda. But before we do that, really quickly, just for staff, two things. Maybe we need to have a very brief agenda item where we discuss a little bit of the work that we have done around congregate care, or other folks call them group homes. The new term is congregate care facilities. But there's been some things we've done at the Capitol. We have not had all of the success we'd like, but we have pushback, and we've tried to implement some of the items that you're discussing, but much of that is a state level issue. And then around the cameras, just maybe we can have a brief moment to explain where we are with that from our police chief and police department. They're actually not Flock. Their Skydio cameras are moved away from Flock because there are some back-end concerns that occurred with Flock in terms of some of the issues that were being discussed at the podium. So maybe we can have some very brief period where we can speak through those and let people understand where we are as a city. So next we can move to approval of meeting agenda and approval of consent agenda.
Mayor Winston.
Yes.
I believe I have one more gentleman that wanted to do a public comment.
Oh, I know. For 6.
Disregard, he wants to speak on item number 6.
Yeah, so folks who are doing 6, please get those to us in advance of 6, because if I don't have it in front of you, I'm not necessarily going to call, because I don't have that in front of me. All right, so next we'll move to approval of meeting agenda and approval of the consent agenda. I know that we need to add, we need to add item 4.17 to our consent agenda. Is there anybody willing to make the motion to approve the agenda with the additional item 4.17? All right, so the motion was made by Councilmember Shelby Page. Is there a second? Second was made by Councilmember Christian Erickson. So we will need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Jean? Aye. Councilmember Page? Aye. Councilmember McGarvey? Aye. Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Mayor Winston?
Aye.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, 0 no votes.
All right. So next we will move to public presentations and proclamations. 1 second. So first we're going to start with recognition of some of our charter commissioners. And so the purpose of this is to publicly recognize and thank outgoing commissioners for their contributions to the city of Brooklyn Park. And this comes out of November 11, 1996. The City Council adopted a policy for recognition of outgoing members to city boards and commissions. Under the policy, commissioners who serve at least 3 years on a commission receive a plaque, while commissioners who serve less than that receive a certificate or letter. Plaques will be mailed to the commissioners who are unable to attend. I believe everyone, I think we have folks here today. So I do want to say for the Charter Commission, we're talking about, before I call the names up, you are talking about kind of the very organizational structure of how we operate as a city, kind of our city's constitution and what we believe in. And I know that those discussions are not always easy on the commission. Sometimes they're controversial. And I know sometimes people step up and they say, hey, I just want to be a volunteer. And then you get pulled into something that's a little bit more controversial or even more emotional than you thought. But I want to say, because I know folks are meeting on a regular basis and they're giving up extra hours of time to be on these commissions, I want to say thank you for your service on these commissions. It's not easy. You could be doing other things, especially when the weather is beautiful. So thank you for just serving, because when we talk about democracy, it's not always just about the elections or the military. It is often about just residents stepping up, stepping into a slot, playing their part, and then moving on with their lives. And the city benefits much more than you benefit. And maybe you don't realize that, but we do. So without further ado, I'm going to call up Amy. Is Amy Hansen here?
This is the second commission that I served on for the city. I was on planning commission for several years and took a break from serving, and then chose to get back involved in the charter commission. So I just want to encourage residents in Brooklyn Park that it's a great opportunity to get involved for a couple hours a month, and you can do it for a couple years and step off when life gets busy, like it did for me raising teenage daughters and caring for elderly parents, and then you can step back in when life settles down a little bit. So I just want to encourage everyone to get involved. It's a great way to give back to your community without a big time commitment on your part. So thank you. Yeah, I'll take a picture. Actually, we can wait for Dennis, and then I'll take it with Dennis.
Don't let the city know when things slow down, because we will. We'll knock on that door again. And of course, Dennis Sakara. Dennis isn't going to say a few words. He just ran the thing for a while. But Dennis, you may not know it, but you taught me a ton when you were on that charter commission, not only in how the city works, but also in terms of how you carry yourself and you lead people. So I want to say thank you for bringing that to the city. It's very much appreciated. So I think we're going to step over here, and council, if we could take a few pictures with our charter. Again, thank you for your service to the city. All right, so this next one I can go into. Cool. This next one is to acknowledge an acceptance of a donation from the Brooklyn Park Rotary Club. Do we have anybody here from the Rotary Club? All right, so I'm going to go back up front. All right. Well, thank you for coming. It is a beautiful day. So I'll just read this first, and then I'll say a few words. But We would like to acknowledge and thank the Brooklyn Park Rotary Club for their donation for Brooklink and Rec on the Go. The Brooklyn Park Rotary Club has been a supporter of many programs and services within Brooklyn Park and is dedicated to providing our young people with opportunities that will have lasting impact on their lives. So give a round of applause. I don't know if there's any council members that would like to say anything else, but I will say that the Rotary Club, ever since I moved to Brooklyn Park, the Rotary Club has been kind of one of the pillars of the community. So I want to thank you all for the work that you've done. I know that you do work in Brooklyn Park, but I also know that you have gone overseas and you've done things for communities that live in Brooklyn Park as well. So you're not just limited to Brooklyn Park, but you really are part of this international community that is connected, an international village that is taking care of one another. So before we receive the check, does anybody care to make the motion to waive the reading? Or I can do that. Councilmember Erickson.
Motion 2026 to waive the reading and adopt resolution to accept a $4,000 donation from the Brooklyn Park Rotary Club for Rec on the Go and Brooklink.
All right, the motion was made by Councilmember Erickson, seconded by Councilmember Garvey. We will need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Page?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Councilmember McGarvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jean?
Aye.
Mayor Winston?
Aye.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes, 0 no votes.
So usually we accept the check right away, but I just want to make sure. Does anybody else want to say a few words before we have them say words? Okay. Well, thank you again for all you've done. I don't know if you guys want to say a few words.
Yes, for the past several years, we've had an Oktoberfest every year that really is dedicated to raising money and increasing the visibility of Brooklink and Rec on the Go. Because considering the diversity of the city, we think these are very, very important programs. So the money we're donating, it certainly won't pay all the bills, but it will help a little bit. But the biggest thing is people will become aware of these programs and know it in the community. So that's how we really got started. While I'm on that subject, we have this year's coming up, October 3rd, and we're at the clubhouse, Eagboro Clubhouse. We'll have craft brewers, wineries, cideries, food, music, and raffles. So a lot of fun for everyone. 2 to 5 in the afternoon. Thanks.
All right, we're going to take a picture up front. I'm sorry. Man, next time I'll just go pull the chair up. give Amanda a minute. Councilmember John.
Well, Councilmember Jean is gone. Just a quick point of order. You mentioned addressing congregate care and flock cameras. I noticed the folks are still in the audience. Are you thinking of doing that tonight or at a future meeting?
Future.
Thank you. Just we love having the public here, but if you didn't want to wait around, I was fuzzy on that. So.
Yes, sorry, it would be a future meeting that we would get that program to. We want to give notice to folks who want to come and listen to that, so yes. All right, so we can go to item 6.1.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know the exact date, but it should be made clear that Brooklyn Park no longer uses flock cameras.
Yeah, I did point that one out.
Oh,
Sky did, but yeah.
I mean, I gotta pay attention.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move into item 6.1, which is Development 26-116 to rezone at 7008 and 7016 Dutton Avenue North.
Mayor Winston, excuse me. I believe Councilmember Tran has a question. She has one.
Councilmember Tran.
Oh, I just have something to report to council about this item because yesterday I took some hours and I door knock and I listened to the neighborhood, the resident. I just want to share with mayor and council before we vote about that.
So if we could have the staff present, and then we'll have you, and I think Councilmember Garvey wants to say a few comments. So have staff present so everybody has some context what we're discussing. Then Councilmember will open up to Councilmember questions and comments after that, per our standard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor Winston and members of the council. My name is Paul Mogish. I'm the planning director here at the City of Brooklyn Park. Presenting item 6.1, which is a request from the property owner at 7008 and 7016 Dutton Avenue North to rezone the property. This is something that any property owner has the right to request of the city. So the location of the property, here we are in the Lakeland Park neighborhood, just south of 694, just east of County Road 81. These are the subject properties outlined in red here. These may be familiar to some members of the council because 3 years ago in 2023, the property owner applied for a plat subdivision to split the property into two. That request was approved because the request met the dimensional requirements of the zoning code. And the request this evening is to rezone the property from R1 single family to the R4 multiple family district. Now when you look in your packet, you'll see that there are some sketch plans for townhomes on the site. That is the applicant's stated intent, should the rezoning be approved, would be to build townhomes on the site. But it's important to understand that what's actually before you this evening is simply the rezoning, not actually a specific development proposal. It's equally important to understand that any action to rezone a property means that the rules on the property have changed, and those are now the rules on the property. Okay, so there can be subsequent requests to apply for a site plan review or other applications that are necessary to build something on that property, but the zoning is then in place, and anything within the range of what's allowed in that zoning district can be built. Okay, so this simple table just outlines the basic differences between the current zoning of R1 single family and what would be possible under the requested zoning district of R4 multiple family. So right now, the single family district is essentially just single family homes with the addition of, as we all know, residential licensed facilities, sometimes called group homes. There's a maximum height of 3 stories. In the R4 district, it's a different mix of uses. You have 2 family homes or duplexes, townhomes, multifamily, and you can see the height limits there, 3 stories for townhomes and duplexes, 6 stories for multifamily. Okay. So those would be the basic rules under the R4 zoning district. So how do we go about making a decision on a request like this? What's really central to weighing this decision is what does the city's comprehensive plan have to say on this property. Comprehensive plan time is really decision time across the city, on every property across the city, every 10 years, making the plan for what can happen there. And every property has a future land use designation. If we zoom in on the residential districts, this is kind of a menu of options in the comprehensive plan. Outlined in red here is what this property is guided for in the plan, which is low density, otherwise known as single family residential, okay? So if you're just looking at this, you would say, well, this is an obvious no. The request is more in that medium-high density range for that R4 district. So taking just this information into account, staff would have recommended no, and in fact, we would have encouraged the applicant to not apply. It's always their right to apply, but we would have encouraged them not to. But in this particular case, there's another layer of policy beyond that underlying land use guidance, and that's because of the property's proximity to the future 63rd Avenue station on the Metro Blue Line extension. The comprehensive plan, per Metropolitan Council guidance, as well as just general research about light rail transit and how far people are willing to walk to light rail transit, draws a half-mile circle or radius around each of the planned stations. And within that radius, there's extra policy guidance about encouraging an increase in residential density to better take advantage of that major investment in transit. So this property is a little bit less than a half-mile walk from the property to that transit station. Now, the city, to be clear, the city 8 years ago already did a fair amount of work on mapping out modified zoning in each of these 5 future station areas. And in that case, this property, the zoning did not change. It remained single family. Other properties closer to the station did change to new zoning that allows denser development, mixed use development to take advantage of that proximity to the station. So this is a long way of saying the council has a fair amount of discretion here in making a decision as to whether or not you want to grant this rezoning. From the staff standpoint, we did recommend to the Planning Commission approval based on that light rail guidance. Planning Commission then held a public hearing this month at their regular meeting, took a fair amount of testimony, and ended up recommending on a 4-3 vote that the council approve the rezoning request. So I'll leave it at that for my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I know Councilmember Tran, you wanted to make some remarks. Did you want to make any?
Mayor, may I ask a personal point of privilege and speak after any public comment?
Okay. All right, so Councilmember Tran, and then I know we have someone who wanted to speak from the public. And then we'll go into, and then we'll have Councilmember McGarvey, and then we'll go into discussion.
Thank you. I just want to share with Mayor and Council. Yesterday, I take some hours. I door knock the resident, and what I hear from more than a dozen of neighbors, none of them support the plan, the project. This is not a single housing approval question. It's a question of whether 12 units can safely, responsibly fit onto 0.76 acres in an established neighborhood with a constrained street and unimproved portion of Kentucky Avenue. The Planning Commission recommendation was narrowly by 4-3 vote. residents raise concern about traffic, parking, utility, overcrowding, privacy, and the cost of improving Kentucky Avenue. Though concerns have not been answered adequately in the council packet. The application states that each unit would have a 2-car garage and a private driveway. However, that doesn't answer several questions, important questions. Where will visitor park? Where will delivery vehicle, home health workers, maintenance contractors, and other service vehicles stop? Where will snow be stored without reducing driveway or street access? Can a fire engine enter, turn, operate, and leave safely when vehicles are parked along the surrounding street? Can a snowblower operate safely without blocking resident driveways? What effect will overflow parking have on current residents trying to enter and leave their properties? The packet also states that 6 units would be accessed from Dutton Avenue and 6 from 66th Avenue. The council should require an actual traffic and turning movement analysis, not simply assume that the surrounding street can absorb the additional vehicle. Engineering staff acknowledge that Kentucky Avenue is unimproved and that no access permit will be issued for Kentucky Avenue until it is improved. We need to know who could pay for paving, stormwater improvement, maintenance, and any related infrastructure. Existing taxpayers should not later be required to correct the problems created by approving excessive density today. I also want the written finding from the fire department, public works, engineering, and the utility department addressing emergency vehicle access and turning clearance, snowblower access and snow storage capacity, water pressure and fire flow capacity, sanitary sewer and water main capacity, stormwater drainage, traffic and pedestrian safety, construction access, and impact on existing residents. This property is near Bristol Airport, so before rezoning the property for increased density, the council should receive a written determination identifying the applicable airport zone, maximum permitted construction height, and whether an airport zoning permit or other review will be required. We must also remember that we are not approving only a drawing. We are being asked to change the legal zoning from R1 to R4. Staff confirmed that once the rezoning is approved, the land could become available for other user permitted in the R4 district. The concept plan doesn't necessarily protect the neighborhood from a different future proposal. Housing is important, but density must be placed where infrastructure can safely support it. 12 rental townhomes should not be forced into a small parcel simply to satisfy a density target without adequate roads, parking, emergency access, utility, drainage, and neighborhood compatibility. Because the record doesn't adequately answer the question, and because the surrounding residents have expressed substantial opposition, I cannot support the rezoning as presented. I move that the council deny the requested rezoning based on insufficient evidence that R4 zoning at this location would prevent congestions, avoid overcrowding, provide adequate access, remain compatible with the established neighborhood, and certify the purpose of the zoning code. And if the council is not prepared to deny it tonight, the minimum responsible action is to table the application until the city receives written traffic, fire access, snow removal, utilities, stormwater, airport zoning, parking, and infrastructure finding, and conduct meaningful engagement with the affected residents. I also want to thank you to the resident that give me the point yesterday. What a very beautiful, solid neighborhood, very represent a very diversity of Brooklyn Park, all kind of cultures there, and the resident 40-year, 50-year, 30-year, 20-year or new, they embrace this order, they open up to the new, neighbors, resident. It's very beautiful. I really, thankful for the chance to get to know this neighborhood. To all of you, thank you very much.
I would ask folks to refrain from we don't do the clapping and stuff in the chambers. But I hear you. So next we have Brad, is it Odegaard? So for 3 minutes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Brad Odegaard, I live at 6716 Dutton Avenue North. I've lived at that address in Lakeland Park for the past 24 years, I believe now. You'll hear from other speakers, and I think from Councilmember Tran, who spoke to some of the community members who maybe weren't able to come and join us tonight, about some of the different issues that Lakeland Park, the neighborhood, faces today, even before any of the proposals that are before you might happen. We're not asking that we don't allow any development, but rather Brooklyn Park implement solutions to the existing issues which are real and impacting us right now, before we add more pressures to the neighborhood. Lakeland Park, and really Southwest Brooklyn Park in general, has done its fair share in building and supporting density and providing housing opportunities. We have everything from single-family home sites all the way up to large multifamily complexes in our neighborhood. I believe we're over 60% rental spaces in the neighborhood. So we're providing a lot of different opportunities, as it is now. So now we're asking for equitable treatment in addressing the issues that face our neighborhood because of that density: parking, access, emergency services, traffic control, etc., which have been highlighted and will continue to be highlighted. I don't need to remind the members that rezoning is one of the last steps in the process where you retain significant discretion. It only seems reasonable that the council would want to have a complete picture of what the outcome will be of this decision before taking action. I believe the members of the community you see here tonight are also seeking that same clarity. We ask that you do not give out the equivalent of a blank check by rezoning without a firm development plan and solutions to the issues you've heard about tonight in place. Thank you.
I saw someone stifle a clap. But you're one of the few people that comes in under the 3 minutes, so thank you for that. Councilmember McGarvey is about to steal your extra minute, though. Councilmember McGarvey. If you fill out a form, we can make sure, if you'd like to fill her out, we can. So we'll give it a few minutes. want to give those to our city clerk, Montero, who's standing. So I'm going to probably limit it to 3 or 4 more, just in the interest of time. So, all right. So if you want to go, oh, go ahead. So is it Pam, Devin? Divine. Oh, it is Divine. Okay. Pam Divine. All right, so if you want to speak for 3 minutes.
So Pam Devine, and I live on 6900 64th Avenue, so a little bit away from Dutton. I don't have a lot of really profound things to say. It was so eloquently addressed already, all the different problems that when I heard about this, all these problems, I didn't even think about them, they just kind of attacked me. We're not supposed to be emotional about this, but I do want to point out that these are our homes, and all these things affect us because they are our homes. It's just such a privilege to be able to own a home, and I'm happy to have all types of neighbors, all kinds of buildings, all kinds of stuff. What we're dealing with now is just an overcrowding and the traffic, and that it wasn't, I mean, I've lived in my home for 40-some years, and so I've watched this traffic increase and this intensity. We just need to deal with some of the problems before we decide what we're going to do, and I really want to encourage the city council to look into what it's going to mean before giving out the blank check or rechanging the zoning, because these are affecting people in their homes. Thank you.
Next is Chad Deere. Deere. All right, Chad Deere. 3 minutes, thank you.
All right, no problem. I'm Chad Deere. I've lived at 6541 Hampshire Avenue North for the last 27 years. All right. I deal with traffic from other heavy apartments to the north of me by the highway, coming down Hampshire all the time. And you're just going to add more if you bring in 12 more units. So I'm against this. Also, the first gentleman that spoke said that, you know, this is based on light rail coming through. I'm a mailman. I work in Hopkins. They got light rail coming through there. I've watched it for years now. It still ain't running. So how long do you think until light rail comes through Brooklyn Park? Do we really need to rezone this right now? I don't think we do. I think there is a lot of issues with traffic on Dutton, on Hampshire, and I think that's something that really needs to be taken into consideration that I don't think was taken into consideration by the planning committee when that was held here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next we have Tim Botten.
extension currently right now is only 90%. We don't have the final plans currently right now, so it's a little premature to align with plans that are not fully developed. My recommendation is to prevent this particular rezoning at this time. The most important thing to take into consideration is that I believe that Member Tran, you were looking over my shoulder, you've looked at my notes. So you've reiterated everything that are on my notes. One thing to take into consideration that really impacts is the lack of transparency with the utility capacity, stormwater drainage. The particular plot will have fewer green space. Kentucky Avenue cannot accept the drainage of 3 driveways into Kentucky Avenue. One thing to take into consideration that any infrastructure that needs to be done on Kentucky Avenue, we will have to have emergency services, garbage truck removal, the residents, and any type of construction on that. We will have to figure out how to accommodate those residents as well as other vehicles, emergency as well as utility, because that road is one road. There is no other in and out, so there will have to be temporary passage created to accommodate those particular residents. It's necessary for us to be able to understand what the stormwater drainage is going to impact, because where is the snow removal going to, especially with the decreased green space, the increased roof space. This drainage is going to be pretty significant, and we need to accommodate. The final thing that really is most important to me is that I live on 64th Avenue, and the increased traffic. The 12 units, potentially 24 vehicles. These are proposed three bedrooms. Do the math, 36. So we're talking at 36. I know that those vehicles are going to be driving down my street because it's the path of least resistance. They're not going to have to go to Hampshire because there's already traffic down there and there's additional stop signs. If they drive right down Lakeland to my down 64th, it's one stop at the stop sign.
So 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Please consider stopping this particular issue.
All right, so before we have Councilmember Garvey, I know the developer, the landowner is here. Did they want to say anything? I'm limited to 3 minutes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members and community members for expressing your concern. I just want to clarify that the reason for this development is primarily due to trying to provide housing where there is not housing. The current lot sits vacant. We'd love to try to find a way to put housing on these lots and to put ideally more than one house on each lot to provide more housing to folks who need it. And I just want to offer one other comment to the community members in general. I just encourage you to maybe shift your focus a little bit on the positives that come from maybe adding some folks to the neighborhood. The ability to develop new relationships, the ability to add members to the community who are going to be engaged, members of the community who might coach youth team, members of the community who might serve on council someday. So I'll leave it at that, but I'd just say that we can all benefit from additional human relationship, and although there are some concerns, and I've heard your concerns today, and I'm sure the council will address many of those concerns, I want you to also take that into consideration. So thanks for your time.
All right, Councilmember McGurk.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Norling, for being here. Thank you, community, for showing up. In full disclosure, I live on Dutton Avenue in the house my wife grew up in. Her father, Frank Detterman, purchased that home in 1977. We own a home in Buffalo, Minnesota, but have rented here at 7017 Dutton Avenue for the last 20 years from my father-in-law. Further, when we lived in Buffalo, I went to church with the Norling family. Seth probably doesn't remember me. He was a tot at that time. That was 20 years ago. I am a renter, and none of what I am about to say comes from any animosity or in any way to enrich myself or my family, though it is in opposition to item 6.1. I have heard and am representing the people who elected me. And furthermore, I had a conversation with the city attorney today to make it clear that this is not enriching me or my family in any way. So, moving ahead here, or not. Evan, you promise? Okay. Because it is unorthodox for a council member to have a PowerPoint in their remarks. However, it is not against the law. There we go. So, as most of the people here know, Lakeland Park is bordered, and by the way, this is going to take me less than 5 minutes after that preamble. Lakeland Park is bordered to the north by 694, Highway 81 to the west, 62nd Avenue to the south, and Veracruz Lane to the east. But I want you to take particular note of that yellow line. And we're going to see that later. That is north on Douglas to 65th, to Edgewood, across 66th, and up to Idaho. Lakeland Park, according to bestneighborhood.org, includes some of the oldest homes in one of the oldest neighborhoods in Brooklyn Park. Just to the west of the squiggled line I mentioned earlier, Douglas, north of 65th to Edgewood, etc., is the highest density of owner-occupied homes in southwest Brooklyn Park, specifically in Lakeland Park. The street on which the property in question sits, Dutton Avenue, is all single-family homes except for the two quote-unquote non-conforming duplexes, one of which I live in, which were built 3 years before Brooklyn Park even had a city council or zoning codes to conform to. This is an aerial view of the property in question. Going off of the proposed layout, and if effectively 6 driveways are added, where will people park on the street? Why does street parking matter? By the way, I wanted to say thank you to Councilmember Tran. She's going to have been much more eloquent than I will be. She's a better writer than me. So, if you spend any time in southwest Brooklyn Park, you notice a unique parking pattern. If you were to take a drive to this property from the west via 694, you would exit at Highway 81, and at the bottom of the ramp, if you look to the left, you would see the north end of Lakeland Avenue, just north of the property in question. I'd like to show you how the current overcrowded street parking we live with in southwest Brooklyn Park. We're going to start at the southwest corner of Lakeland Park in the neighborhood of rental townhomes along Welcome Avenue. You will see that rental townhomes in southwest Brooklyn Park have a unique parking pattern because rent is not affordable anywhere anymore. The units often have more people in them than they have bedrooms or parking spots. Where's your girlfriend going to live? Or park? Where's your roommate going to park? They're going to park in the street. If we go down around the corner, or go a little down 63rd and come to 64th Avenue, you would see this. And this is all rental townhomes here. That's turning the corner. That's looking down the street. If we then turned right on Douglas Drive, 64th Douglas Drive, you would see this. The west side of Douglas Drive is all rental townhomes south of 65th. Vehicles are parked in front of those rental townhomes. North of 65th on Douglas, the east side of the street is all rental townhomes. And don't ask me why they seem to heed the no parking anytime signs on this street, but they do. And instead, they park in front of the single-family homes on the west side of the street, across from the townhomes that they're there to visit or live in. And sometimes even park on the neighbor's grass there by the mailbox. So what do I mean by heed the no parking anytime sign? 65th Avenue between Zane on the east end and Edgewood on the west end, south of the Willows apartments is a good example of what I mean. Now, it's not townhome complex, but it is rental property in Southwest Brooklyn Park. See that no parking anytime sign in the upper right-hand corner? There are 7 vehicles parked behind that truck through the bus stop on any given day. For this photo, I needed to come forward to capture the vehicles parked all the way to Edgewood Avenue North. Which, if you look, is from there to the very far left side of this picture. At the north end of Douglas Drive are the rest of the Willows Apartments, 67th Avenue North. A city street runs right through the complex and offers an even better example of the parking enforcement challenges near rental property in Southwest Brooklyn Park. This is the east end of 67th, where it terminates into one of the Willows Apartments parking lots. This is just looking down the sidewalk. This is walking 10 feet to the left and looking down the middle of the street. This is looking west on 67th Avenue North. These vehicles are parked end to end through every no parking anytime sign and every Metro Transit no parking bus stop sign, across from driveways and in front of fire hydrants. Don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of any street parking in the Lakeland Park neighborhood. But as you can plainly see, it appears to simply come with rental property in Southwest Brooklyn Park. And again, I am a renter in Southwest Brooklyn Park. This is looking east on 67th. Be advised, this is the situation 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Snow, wind, rain, and fire. All the time. Don't believe me? Ask any of the crew at Public Works who have to plow snow in this neighborhood. Any Brooklyn Park Police Department patrol officer patrolling in Southwest Brooklyn Park. Keep in mind that every one of these west-facing vehicles is going to use Hampshire to get to 63rd. And every one of these east-facing vehicles used Hampshire to get here. They will all, and then in return they use either Douglas, etc. So 2 streets are bearing all of this traffic. On their way out of the neighborhood, and this is personal, they routinely speed, blow through stop signs, and throw their Chipotle bags and whatever else they don't want in their vehicles in these citizens' yards. At some point, you just get tired of calling the cops. And here we are, full circle back to the north end of Lakeland Avenue. That is the exit we saw at the beginning of the PowerPoint. Just a little north of the property in question. And why does all of this matter to the people here tonight, and why should it matter to the City Council? Once again, from bestneighborhoods.com, this is the highest density of owner-occupied homes in the highest density rental neighborhood in Brooklyn Park. According to 2023 census information, Lakeland Park is 76% rental. The rest of Brooklyn Park is on average 30% rental. You've heard how long many of these residents here tonight have lived, and we only heard from 5, and that was 100+ years. we're only just halfway to blue on this map, which means mostly owner occupied, as you can see. This proposal is a low blow to those who have hung in there, the ones who have faithfully paid their property taxes for decades, the ones who have busted their asses to maintain their yards, their aging homes, and their beautiful, kid-friendly, working-class neighborhood. We are even considering this tonight, as Director Mogish mentioned, because this property sits in a transit-oriented development zone. These residents understand that this neighborhood is in that zone, and if the possible Blue Line LRT comes through, and that's a big if, this type of development will probably be inevitable. But like I said, they understand that's a big if. The project was recently revealed to be $200 million short of what it needs to receive the $750 million in federal funding that Congress awarded to it. In reality, and making the whole reason for proposing this rezoning at this time $950 million short. Nearly $1 billion less likely to happen. This administration defunded the life-saving and international coalition building USAID funding for countries the president hates most. Does anyone really believe it will fund LRT for Minnesota, one of the states he hates most? A federal transit authority was recently quoted on KSTP News regarding the approved federal funding. And he said, what's happening here seems to be a blockade on the program from the Trump administration. Congress has actually approved a lot of money for projects all over the country, including the Twin Cities, but the White House is preventing that money from getting out. This is not political speech, this is simply the Federal Transit Authority is saying. Additional concerns for the residents of Lakeland Park neighborhood include, there are only 3 streets for 244 current households to get in or out of the Lakeland Park neighborhood. The reason that parking is prohibited on the east side of Lakeland Avenue is because fire trucks need a certain amount of width to get through. And through the years, 2 homes have burned to the ground on the west end of Dutton Avenue, one of them being this lot in consideration tonight, and one on Kentucky Avenue. So that we know that occasionally EMS needs to get through. In addition, as Councilmember Tran mentioned, we sit right at the end in the takeoff and landing zone of runways 1, 4 left and right, the 2 primary runways at the Crystal Airport. We've had 2 air emergencies in the last 3 years. A plane made an emergency landing on Highway 81 less than 1 mile from the property in question tonight, in the northwest corner of our neighborhood. And then earlier this year in May, a plane crashed in the south end of the Lakeland Park neighborhood, killing both individuals in the plane. We have infrastructure and law enforcement challenges that we're concerned about in the Lakeland Park neighborhood. Residents in this immediate neighborhood were informed earlier this year by Xcel Energy that they will receive a $125 rebate as a result of their service quality tariff, because there have been 4 or more service interruptions in 4 or more consecutive years. Secondly, the reconstruction of Highway 81 in 2014 through 2017 eliminated the drainage ditch that serviced all of the west end of Lakeland Park, the Lakeland Park neighborhood, running from 63rd Avenue to north of the freeway. The neighborhood was left with 1 drainage pond in the southwest corner. Currently, it is 1 continuous impervious, which means paved, surface from the east edge of Lakeland Avenue all the way to the west edge of Highway 81 from 63rd to north of the freeway. If this lot is rezoned now and the proposed project is completed, that will be an additional almost acre of basically impervious surface, wreaking havoc on the water table in the neighborhood. Basement flooding, concrete upheaval. Come and look at my driveway, sidewalk, and basement, and the increased hydrostatic pressure we're dealing with. Vehicles already ignore traffic and parking laws with perceived impunity on the streets in this neighborhood, making it less safe for kids to ride bikes, etc. At a minimum, 24 more unnecessary vehicles at this 0.7 acre lot will make it at least 24 more times less safe. I'm at the end here. I thought I was at the end here. In these materialistic times, it would seem that investing is what makes the world go around, but it's not, and it never has been. Having family, friends, and neighbors you care about is what makes the world go round. The Lakeland Park neighborhood is not a build-to-rent development like D.R. Horton, Lennar, or Pulte Homes. We're not a fix-and-flop opportunity. We're not a long-term hold strategy. We're an old, established, working-class neighborhood that has kept itself presentable and affordable for new families wanting to buy a home. The residents of Lakeland Park asked Norbrook Construction to implement a long-term hold strategy. Sit on this property, let it appreciate in value, and if the LRT actually ever happens, then come back and ask for this zoning change. If we approve this request tonight, we cannot go back. The second main goal of this council has been to increase homeownership opportunities for those who have traditionally not had it, many marginalized people groups. The Lakeland Park neighborhood is one of the few places left in this city where that's even possible. I understand that many young people today are not interested in owning a home, but that's certainly not all of them. Let Lakeland Park continue to be the place that those who do want to own a home can come and find one they can afford. Let us be that as long as we can. I would ask my colleagues to remember the hope that we promised to work to deliver, and join me in voting no to the rezoning of this lot, these two lots, at this time. Thank you for your patience with my stumbling and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you for the silent air clap. I see you on the back. But, I know we have some folks that want to speak. I will say this. I generally trust the city engineering and them coming to the numbers that they come with. I think the thing that makes me inclined not to vote to rezone is that 76% this area is rental. And I think we have, as a council, repeatedly said, hey, listen, we're not trying to concentrate all the rentals in one area. We've also said that about congregate care facilities as well, other facilities. We do not want to focus any one thing in one particular area. We want the city to be relatively well integrated so that opportunities are available to all, and folks can experience all sorts of different neighbors. So I think that is a concern. I think there is, and I also want to point out that, some of the issues with cars that you guys deal with parking on the side of the road, I'm not inclined to blame the people with the cars. Some of that comes from planning long before we were in office, and I think part of it is we, and the city has probably already done this, so I'm not going to throw them under the bus at all on this. I think we probably need to reach out to them and say how many passes are you giving to people to park in the parking lots for some of the nearby apartment complexes. And I'm aware of those apartment complexes, but when I've walked in some of those complexes, sometimes the parking is full, sometimes it's not. So maybe there's a little leeway that we can work out as a city. But I think my major concern is just the concentration of rental homes of rental facilities or places to live in one particular area. And I think when we initially decided to say, hey, these can be broken into two different addresses or places to live, I think our initial instinct was, okay, maybe it's going to be two homes, right? That was kind of the instinct that we had as a council. Now it's coming back and we're hearing about this, and I understand from a developer's perspective the investment that goes into it and what's going on there. But I would say from my perspective, there's other votes up here, of course. My perspective, I'm concerned about the concentration of rental in one particular area, and I think that is something that we have seen within the city. I understand that it's going to be a TOD area, and then light rail is probably going to still come, even if it's deferred. There's a good chance it comes, but I don't think, for me, that is the necessary argument. I think in terms of getting value from properties, there's the biotech district, there's redevelopment along Brooklyn Boulevard, there are some other opportunities in less dense areas that we can look to get the value that we're looking for, and that we can look to get the housing that the city needs. I think trying to piecemeal providing housing for folks from the city perspective, I understand developer perspective, that will be difficult. I think there's areas where we can provide more housing in a planned area, in a planned way that fits what we're trying to do as a city. So I'm not inclined to vote for it for those reasons. I understand the character of the neighborhood. I always try to stay away from NIMBY, so that's why I'm kind of saying, for me, it is that concentration in one particular area does not bode well for 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road for that particular neighborhood. And I think Councilman McCarty said it well. You said 5 minutes, by the way. That was I can't say anything because I'm there. But you know, I've been known to go. So, but I will say that I think he said it well, that overall as a city, Brooklyn Park has done its fair share in terms of saying, hey, we're going to provide denser and affordable housing. And I know that this neighborhood has done its fair share, right? Very much its fair share. And so people are kind of saying there's things that come with that. And it's not the people, right? It's the parking and some of the other issues you're talking about. But also I think it's important that whatever occurs, we are helping people to have closer knit neighborhoods. And so that comes with a certain planning approach that our staff can tell you is very difficult to hit the nail on the head. That balance is very difficult. So I'll close on this. I have all the faith in the world in terms of our city, in terms of when they look at something and they engineer it and what makes sense. But I also understand that there is a concentration, and that is why I'm just not inclined to vote for this particular rezoning. So I know we have Councilmember Page, and then we have Councilmember McCarty.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember McGarvey, I've never seen you fight so hard for the agenda items, so I give him a lot of credit for that. He was well-versed on the agenda item, and he spoke on your behalf quite well to make us understand, so I think there's a lot of us who went through your neighborhood. I appreciate all the stats, I appreciate all the information, I appreciate the depth of the information, but it starts with me on community. This is exactly what we should be doing. You showed up, you didn't give up, you came here again, you're supporting your neighbors, and you're like, we're Brooklyn Park and here we are. So as much as I love all the other information that you provided, I just like the fact that you're here and you're showing up. You are all extremely well-versed on what the situation is, and I think community speaks louder than any zoning laws or ordinances. So for that reason, I am also not voting for this. A point of clarification for our city attorney. If there is not a motion or a second, then could you just clarify that for me, please?
Smith, members of council, if there's not a motion, what?
Correct. If we do
Well,
not have
the
a
council
motion.
should take some action tonight, okay?
So that is
and the
correct.
motion that's on the agenda packet is to waive the reading and adopt on first reading. If the sense of the council is not to do that, then I would suggest that the motion be exactly the same as in the staff report, except change the word adopt to deny.
Okay,
And
thank
make
you.
that motion. That's the sense of the council.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCarty, and then we have Councilmember Jean.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification. Mayor. The residents of Lakeland Park are not saying NIMBY, not in my backyard. They're saying NIMBY, look in my backyard.
I got you. Yeah, so I'll just speak to that. I don't think folks were, but I think I was making it clear that the strongest argument for me is that density portion, right? If we go into other factors that can cross into that, I think I've told folks that before. So I think the strongest argument is that density. There's been a serious concentration in that. It's like my neighborhood has done more than your fair share in terms of that density. So that's why I'm inclined to move in this particular direction. Sometimes if you get into the character of this neighborhood and the character of that neighborhood, that can be misinterpreted, right? But I heard a lot more of, hey, there's been a lot of density. Here's the issues with traffic. Here's the issues with these other pieces. So to clarify, that's what I'm referring to. Councilmember Jean.
Thank you, Mayor. So a lot of things that I want to say that a lot of, has already been said. And so again, thank you to our West District council members for working so hard in getting across the point of the residents. Obviously, we don't live in the West District, and so some of us may not be familiar with that site, right? And so it helped out a lot to have communication and photos and explanations of the situation going down. And then on top of that as well, thank you to the residents for fighting for this and showing up. I literally just had a whole entire conversation with some of my coworkers today on the perspective of being an elected official, and really, decision making is hard, especially when you don't have the perspective and opinions from residents themselves. So it's really hard for us to actually determine what is wanted by the community, and you guys are the community that lives there. And so to me, you guys have basically priority in terms of say, right? Especially because you guys are the ones experiencing the outcome of the decision that comes out tonight. And so with that, I also really want to emphasize, I'm pretty sure a lot of my council member colleagues are aware of this, and even staff, but when it comes down to the blue line, I've always emphasized that displacement is my #1 priority when it comes to that development. I've worked on it personally outside of council hours. I've worked on it before I even sat into office. And so my #1 priority when it comes to that development is displacement, and then second comes opportunity. There's a reason for that, because the whole entire purpose of the LRT in the first place was to benefit current Brooklyn Park residents, right? And to provide access to jobs and opportunities to build equity and generational wealth. That's the plan. But then I don't really see the benefit of these opportunities if it's not for our current residents to actually reap, right? And so even if that displacement is voluntary displacement, where folks choose to leave our city, voluntary displacement is never actually voluntary. There's always a reason behind it, right? Whether it's cost of living due to the property value, construction causing inaccessibility, noise, or development such as these that we expect to come as the LRT nears. But as of right now, I think you guys as residents had honestly hit the nail on the head. There is still a long way to go when it comes to the development of the LRT. I know personally. And so with that as well, our priority when it comes to any sort of development should be our Brooklyn Park residents, our current ones, to ensure that you guys are remaining here to actually benefit from any development that we approve of. And so with the blue line coming, whether you guys are choosing to ride it or not, you guys are still living amongst the corridor of that line. We hope that you guys continue to stay to, again, reap those benefits. And to me, it's not worth approving this rezoning if it causes already early displacement of our current residents being devised. And so I just want to say thank you for showing up and showing out. Thank you to the council members of the West District for doing such a great job in explaining the scenario to us, who again don't live in the West District. And then as well as also thank you to staff actually for just being able to provide the different perspectives for us to consider, even if we vote against or for. And then also thank you to the developer for coming out and still just, providing an opinion and a different perspective to look at. So that's all I gotta say.
All right, so does anybody care to make the motion to, what did you say? Deny? Does anybody care to make that motion? Yeah, to deny?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make the motion to deny an ordinance amending chapter 152 rezoning 0.76 acres from R1 detached single-family estate district to R4 multiple family residential district at 7008 and 7016 Dutton Avenue North because of infrastructure and traffic law enforcement concerns, EMS response times, and general public safety.
Second.
Second.
So we will need a roll call vote for this.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, because this is a denial, I think we should also summarize on the record other reasons for denial that I've heard, so it's clear that the basis for the action is. So if you give me a minute, I can do that.
Do you want to summarize it?
I'll summarize it based on what I've heard from the testimony. And so in addition, first of all, the reasons that Councilmember Tran recited in her presentation. Secondly, another basis for denial is it would increase, not to the council's desire, the concentration of rental properties in the area. It is inadequate, lawful on-street parking in the neighborhood. The surrounding uses are all, except for the 2 non-conforming duplexes, detached single-family residences. But for the LRT zoning, the R4 request is not in compliance with the low density guiding on the property, and therefore any request to rezone the property to R4 is not appropriate until the LRT is a reality in the city. Those are the ones that I heard. I think we should state on the record as the reason for the.
So everybody sees why we have an attorney. All right, did you have Councilmember Tran? Did you have?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No.
okay, all right. No more comments, right? So we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Okay, the motion is to deny. Councilmember Page? Aye. Councilmember McGarvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Tran?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jean? Aye. Mayor Winston?
Aye.
The motion passes with 7 yes votes and 0 no votes.
So what I'll say is, to everybody who came out, well, first, Councilmember McGarvey, thank you for your words on this. Thank you, Councilmember Tran, for your words on this as well. And then thank you to the community for coming out, to the developer, thank you for, it doesn't always work out. Thank you for coming out. I know you were at the planning meeting, and then thank you for giving some insight here as well. And staff, again, as Councilmember Jones says, thank you for the work that you do on these, and just all the research you're doing and educating us on all of this. So thank you, community, for being involved. We appreciate it.
Mayor Winston, I just want to correct myself. I said 7 yes votes, but it's actually 6 yes votes and 0 no votes.
All right. So next, we will move to item 7.1. So this is the conversation about deposits, financial guarantees, and escrows, land use code text amendment. So I know people are leaving, but there's a requirement that you have to sit through the whole.
Thanks for that introduction, Mayor Winston. Item 7.1 is related to financial surety text amendments. So what is this all about? There's a couple financial considerations when staff are reviewing development proposals, and then during the process of the new building being constructed as a result. So this is how it works now. the development review process has expenses associated with it. There's staff time that goes into doing the review, legal fees, notification requirements, all sorts of things that cost money. So there's a process in place right now that's outlined in the Code of Ordinances for the city to recover those costs associated with development review. And that happens in the form of both a flat application fee as well as a cash escrow. The other side of this is mitigating city risk. So what are we at risk for? So when a development is under construction, and I should say we're talking right now about anything happening on the actual development site. A lot of things happen, right? There's grading that happens, there's stormwater infrastructure that's installed, landscaping is installed, lots of site improvements that happen. And there is some risk to the city if something were to go wrong with this private developer building all this stuff. What would happen if they, did it part way or did something wrong and it caused some damage and then just walked away? It's very, very, very rare, but it does happen from time to time. So how do we mitigate that risk? Well, the way we do it now is we collect financial sureties in the form of both cash and letters of credit, so that in the very rare instance that the city needs to step in and directly fix something that's happening on a private development site, we have access to some funds either through that cash that's required of the developer or in an extremely rare instance, drawing out a letter of credit to get that work done. Okay, so this is just the same thing in more words with more of the details. This is all governed by a standard development contract that the city and each developer signs anytime there's a development. And we're talking about any development that happens, whether it's city involved, whether it's city financing, EDA financing, city financing, or just straight up private development. So there's an escrow that's $2,000 up front plus 3% of the estimated cost of the site improvements. That's again to cover city expenses. And then the financial guarantee part of it is most of it is through a letter of credit. 95% of the site improvement cost is through a letter of credit, but then 5% is collected in cash. And again, that's used as the kind of the backstop in case something goes wrong. So I've got a couple examples here of what this actually looks like from real development proposals. In this case, Rotation Engineering, this hasn't been built yet, but it was an application for an addition to an existing building, existing business, Rotation Engineering. So they had to pay the $500 flat fee, $2,000 review escrow, and then all this money in both a letter of credit and cash for a total of over $200,000 up front. Okay, so the cash up front is in the neighborhood of $20,000 here, and then a pretty sizable letter of credit. For a much larger development, like say the Brook apartment buildings, these numbers get pretty high. In this example, $1.4 million up front, well over $100,000 of that in the form of cash. And for some larger, more established developers, this is something that they can handle. But the concern that has been raised both by staff in recent years, as well as the Planning Commission, who in this case really drove the staff analysis that took place here, is emerging. This is tough for newer and emerging developers in a lot of cases to have the creditworthiness to come up with a letter of credit that large, and especially to be able to part with that amount of cash for months or even years throughout the development process. They get that all back at the end, minus the staff time and other expenses that were put into it. But it is a significant burden, and we hear about this all the time, especially from smaller developers. So staff about a year ago set out on the process of taking a look at the situation, coming up with some ideas for changing how we do this while still maintaining, obviously covering our expenses and having that financial backstop in case something goes wrong, with the goals of doing all these things: empowering small minority-owned businesses, building an equitable and transparent process, really right-sizing the regulations to the scale of the project and eliminating outdated and burdensome requirements. While not the main thrust of this is also just a very substantial administrative burden on the part of the staff. So really, this is all about making it easier to do business in Brooklyn Park, easier to build in Brooklyn Park. So these are all the components of the projects that staff engaged on over the last year or so. Matt Hayes-Regan on the planning staff was the project manager for this effort. He conducted peer city research, looked at a number of cities around the state who have either changed the way they do this or never had these kinds of sureties in the first place. We talked a lot with internal departments, finance and public works and others, completed a fiscal impact summary, evaluated some alternatives as to how to deal with this, and then prepared the draft ordinance that's in front of you. So after all that work, the proposal is as follows. So on covering city expenses for the development review process, the proposal in front of you changed it so there isn't both an application fee and a cash escrow. The idea is to collect an application fee only, but then simply raise the amount of that fee to cover the costs associated with doing development review. So we've worked with the finance department to look back through several years of development review expenses. You know, we keep track of everything, every hour of staff time, every legal invoice, everything, and we've come up with a fee structure that is going to cover those costs, make it predictable for developers so they know exactly what they're going to be paying. There isn't any risk to them. And though this package here tonight doesn't have those fee changes, those will come through later this fall with all of the annual fee updates that we've had. So on the second piece about mitigating city risk, what we do now, as I mentioned, is we connect financial sureties in the form of cash and a letter of credit. The proposal here eliminates that. And instead, the approach is to retool the development contract to say, in the unlikely event that any of these problems happen on the site where the developer doesn't complete something or something goes wrong that is causing a problem, and the city has to step in and do some work, the city then will assess the cost of that work to the property, which ensures that the city will be made financially whole in that unlikely event. And include one detail is that the development contract will include a waiver of the property owner's right to appeal that. It will be a certainty that the city will get those funds. So that was the topic of financial sureties and escrows, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
I actually don't have questions on this. This is actually timely. Just from hearing input from developers, not just in Brooklyn Park, but for some time, that sometimes upfront can be a little cost prohibitive, so finding ways to mitigate that on their end, but still protect the city, I think is incredibly important, just so we get the development we want, maybe sometimes from people who haven't always been in development, so this is timely. I appreciate you taking it on. Before we really made a strong push for it. It's nice to have kind of that proactive approach. Any comments, questions? Councilmember Erickson.
I'll second what the mayor said. I think that this is a good way forward, both encouraging developers and protecting the city. So I will go ahead and read the motion to waive the reading and adopt on first reading an ordinance amending portions of chapters 151 and 152 of the Brooklyn Borough Code pertaining to deposits, financial guarantees, and escrows to take effect on January 1, 2027.
Second. So we will need a roll call vote.
Councilmember Tran?
Abstain.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jean? Councilmember Page? Mayor Winslow?
Aye.
The motion passes with 4 yes votes. One abstention.
Thank you. And thank you for the work on that again. We appreciate it. All right, so next we'll move to our e-bike discussion. And we'll have a presentation from the police department on e-bike usage. And it will be Chief Mark Wood.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Winston, Council members. Police Chief Mark Bruley. Joining me tonight will be Director Greg Tolberg, Park and Recs, and Commander Ray, also with the Police Department, discuss e-vehicles or e-bikes commonly referred to. I will, this is at the request of Council members that we discuss this tonight. I think it's certainly timely. National Night Out we recently had, it was the #1 complaint that I received at every party I went to, was about regulating and what we're going to do. There's not great answers, but the discussion will help us get us started down the path of things that we need to consider as a city and certainly as a council. So with that, I'll turn it over to Commander Ray.
Thank you. Mayor Winston, members of council, my name is Commander Matt Ray with the Park Police Department. We don't have a lot of slides here, and feel free once we get to the end or even in the middle if you have some questions. What are some of the issues that we're seeing? You guys are probably aware we've had some very serious crashes. One 9-year-old boy was killed on an e-scooter recently. We also recently had a crash of 2 youngsters on an e-bike over on the east side of the city, hit by a car. They were both transported to the hospital. We're seeing these increased crashes throughout the entire country. There's just no two ways about it. And we're seeing those here in Brooklyn Park as well. Huge increase across the city in e-bike, e-scooter, e-vehicle usage. So it's becoming more of a concern for all of the residents. And there's a lot of confusion as to what exactly is an e-vehicle or an e-bike or an e-scooter. What are the rules? What are the laws? Even the police are confused. It's really hard to tell what is what by just looking at it, and they all have different rules. We've been receiving numerous complaints throughout the city, directly to me or often to our officers when they see them out and about. So what have we been doing about it? We have been working really closely with Director Tolberg and his team and trying to really push hard on a campaign throughout the city through social media. I know Director Tolberg can speak to some of the park and recreation signage that they have throughout the city. There's a link here, but we do have it on our website as well that talks about what are the rules, what is an e-bike, what is an e-vehicle, how do we define these things. We've been engaging the community to talk about some of the problems that we've seen and to try to educate as much as possible. And then we've also had an enforcement campaign, some of it in partnership with Three Rivers Police and some of our Three Rivers districts to really focus in on e-motos. Those are the ones without the pedals that go really, really fast. So what are they? This is the different types of e-vehicles. Try to make this as straightforward as possible. Here's what it really boils down to. It's an e-bike. It has pedals and some sort of electric motor. It's a motorized foot scooter like a Lime or some of the smaller ones. Or it's an e-moto. Those are the ones that look like motorcycles. They don't have pedals. They literally look like a motorcycle. And they're all looked at differently by state law. And then more granularly, the e-bikes have different laws for different types of e-bikes. That's why it gets really confusing.
So if we look at the e-bike, they break down into 3 different categories. You have class 1 that goes 20 miles an hour. It's assisted when you're pedaling, but doesn't assist when you're not pedaling. You have class 2 that has a throttle assist, also 20 miles an hour. And then class 3, that's the fastest, that goes 28 miles an hour, and it has to have a speedometer on it. But they all 3 have pedals, and just by looking at them from afar, you can't tell really if they're class 1, 2, or 3, which makes it difficult to immediately take action on them. These are specifically governed by 169.222, and one of the things that you'll see in that statute is it says the restriction says that anyone under the age of 15 cannot operate these in the state of Minnesota. We're going to talk a little bit more about that particular issue in a moment. These are e-scooters. You have to be 12 to ride an e-scooter. You have to wear a helmet if you're under the age of 18. You still got to follow the rules of the road. You can't just be riding through the street, going through stop signs, things like that. City ordinance. E-vehicles are not specifically addressed in current city ordinance. Our city ordinances are not new enough to be able to address them specifically. They do talk about mopeds and scooters. They're more designed for either non-e-vehicle type things or your traditional gas-powered scooters. They're just, the ordinance is just not granular enough to talk about these definitively. Some of the limitations with state law. So 169.222 and 225, the ones that govern the e-bike and the e-scooter issues, they're a petty misdemeanor. So there's limited action that we can take. And one of the other issues we have with this is state law says that you have to be 15 to operate these things. If you're under the age of 13, we have no mechanism for holding those youth accountable. We can't write them a ticket, we can't arrest them, we can't take them to jail, not that we would want to anyway, but we can't do anything. So if they're under 13 and we know that 10, 11, 12-year-olds are riding e-bikes, there is no mechanism for accountability there. So the state law is not particularly helpful in that area. The other thing I would point out with e-motos, they're essentially motorcycles. They have to be registered with the state. They're governed by all of the rules that a motorcycle will be governed by. Some of them go 50 miles an hour. E-motos are much easier to deal with. If you see those ripping around your neighborhood or one of the parks, that's one of the ones that doesn't have pedals and it look like a motorcycle. Those are regulated by state law and we can take action on those pretty easily. I would say those, we do sometimes get complaints on those. It's more the e-bikes that are ripping down the sidewalk or the trail and they startle people because they're so quiet. All right, so some of our possible options that we have, we can put some restrictions in place with the trails, and I think Director Tolbert can speak to that a little bit. I do believe we have some signage that addresses that. Another option that we have is to lobby for more state law changes. That's something that we can choose to do as a city. And then I'd say the third option that we have is to update our city ordinance to specifically address e-vehicles, become more granular, and put some rules of the road in place, and provide some options for us to address the fact that we can't currently impound them, or try to find ways for parents to be more active in how they deal with the youth that are riding these e-bikes. Did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Commander Ravy, Mayor Winston, council members. That's all we have for that presentation. I was just trying to start the conversation with all of you and answer any questions that you may have. So please fire away for any one of us, any questions you might have.
Councilmember Jean.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you guys as well for being so on top of us. Luckily, Brad brought this up at the last RPAC meeting, so I feel like I got like a one-up before my other council members. So I guess my question is, do we have jurisdiction, like as a city, to enforce a registration of these vehicles? To kind of target that liability or accountability aspect, even if it's not state level yet. Because for example, even though a 13-year-old were to be caught driving a car and they
can't be persecuted for it. The vehicle is registered under, I'm pretty sure, like a parent. So wouldn't the parent be liable for that scenario? And if possible, can we do that with these vehicles, basically?
Councilmember Zhang and members of the council, that's a great question. And I would probably punt to our attorney about how we have an enforcement mechanism that allows us to specifically register each bike. I think there are, if the goal is to prompt parents to hold their children accountable, I think there may be other mechanisms that would be more effective than registration. I do happen to know, just because I grew up here in 1982, that we used to have bike registration. At the time it was voluntary, no one did it, and we ended up getting rid of it. So I would hate to put us in a position where we're having difficulty enforcing bike registration. It's just another thing to enforce. And I think there are better opportunities to prompt parents to hold their children accountable. Did that answer the question?
Yes, yes, it does. And so, I guess that brings me to ask as well, when it comes to seizing these vehicles in the first place, it specifically says in like Minnesota law that we're not able to.
Well, so the question is whether or not we are legally allowed to seize these vehicles. I would say no. So the violation is a petty misdemeanor, so we wouldn't be able to seize it really as evidence of a crime. We could make an argument that the youth is under the age of 15, and because they're under the age of 15, they can't lawfully ride it home when we stop them. However, if they're like, well, I'm just walking home, then we would have to say, okay, go ahead. Now, that being said, and I have done some research into this, speaking to one of our attorneys, and also I've looked at some of the other cities that are taking action on this. The city of Maple Grove just passed an ordinance that specifically gives them the authority to impound the bike. I would want to do a little bit more research into that before we do it, but it's an option to look at. And then if we had an ordinance that called out that violation as a misdemeanor, then it would be evidence of a crime, and there may be some opportunity to impound the bike. The goal here is really about educating parents. And if we impound that bike so that a kid can't ride it back, and we just let the parent know, like, hey, come get the bike, you know, that it gives us an opportunity to pass off a little bit of information to the parents, educate them. You know, it's not about taking a bunch of bikes away from kids. And the truth is, we don't want a bunch of bikes. We don't have a lot of space for them. So that might be a better opportunity, and specifically put some of that information into our ordinance.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I guess, I know that you mentioned like the registration probably might not be useful, but if we are able to like impound these devices or vehicles or bikes or whatever it is, can we then potentially consider calling these parents and being like, hey, if you want your bike back, please come and pick it up, but then in the meantime, we also have to write that in there, register this vehicle under your name, have a sticker underneath the seat, whatever it is, pay like, you know, just like a one-time registration fee, bring that back to the city as well.
Sure, we could, that's something we could definitely look into. Like I said, I want to talk to our attorneys about what that enforcement mechanism looks like. Again, that is similar to what we had with bike registration previously. Some of that was to deal with bikes that were stolen, and we had very low rates of people registering their bikes, which is why we eventually dropped the program.
Thank you.
Councilmember Erickson.
This might be a somewhat obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I live close to Norwood Park. I'm pretty sure that I've seen enough violations that we could probably keep one officer busy for several hours a day, every day of the week. Is there a realistic enforcement capacity in the city of Brooklyn Park for dealing with any potential ordinance?
Mayor Winston, council members, Councilmember Erickson. you know, it depends on the time of day, right? It depends on weekends or whatnot. It's one of the problems that we always have is we have highs and lows of call load and staffing. And the truth is, we have very limited capacity. We are just trying to keep up with the traffic complaints that we get. We have been pushing hard to increase, because I've heard the community and I've heard council members talking about we have to increase traffic safety in our communities, and so we have been pushing hard. And this is just one more thing that we need to enforce. And the truth is, there's very little enforcement to be done. We have our hands tied, and it's not a great look that we have our cops out there stopping kids on e-bikes, looking for registration, looking for all there, looking at the other helmet. I helped create this presentation. I'm not clear when I see bikes out there if the kid can be on it or not. So the laws are very complex. The state's made it clear that we're not going to hold young people accountable. The one mechanism that I see available to us is to wake the parents up that these are dangerous, is to find a way to take the bikes away. I don't think we can just educate ourselves out of it. We've been pushing hard, and we see more every day out there. It seems like if we want to have an impact, my suggestion is that we go down the road of potentially making this a misdemeanor by ordinance, and then allowing us to at least remove the bike and seize it. And then it's a significant inconvenience to have to come up and go through the process of recovering the bike. That seems to be the only lever that I can see us able to pull right now. And it is very challenging to keep up with all the demands on public safety, and now to add on e-bikes, which you're right, they're on every park trail, they're on every sidewalk. It is a real problem.
So next question would be, this is sort of a law enforcement psychology type question. I know that we can put cameras out on, I know you're working with a resident on Humboldt right now, near 73rd, that there's been the meters put out there so people are reminded how fast they're going, that there's been occasional traffic enforcement there, et cetera, and they're still observing the problem. So I assume there's some sort of threshold where people realize they have some actual likelihood of having the law enforced upon them. Yeah. And I mean, I imagine a few well-timed weekends with a couple officers committed to it could at least get it out in the ether that you might lose your bike and have to have your parents come get you, whatever. And if we pair that with something in the park pages, a citywide mailing, some social media stuff, like psychology-wise, do you think that there's potential in that combination of things?
Mayor Winston, Councilmember Erickson, I think you're spot on. I mean, I think that's the smartest strategy. My fear would be right now if we go out and try to, and I've heard members of the community get out there and talk, or they call, and we're trying to identify what violation. We're finding 12, 11-year-old kids with these bikes. We have no legal authority to take them. There is nothing for us to do. To go out and try to enforce these right now is just irresponsible and not a great use of our time. I think that is exactly right. We've done the education campaign. The school's doing the education campaign. I think we continue on that to make sure that parents understand. But I think one of the community members had mentioned it, and she's 100% correct. The parents are giving these bikes. They do not understand that they're dangerous. They don't understand the risks. They think that they're a toy, and it's giving their youngster, the opportunity to go to the park or to kind of spread their wings a little bit and go down the park trails. I think for us to do it correctly is you're spot on. It's the ability to seize these bikes. There's actually legitimate consequences where we're actually taking the bike and bringing the kid home and tell parents that you have to come get your bike. It's been impounded. I think that incorporated along with strategically enforcing this and then advertising, on the social media websites that we are doing these saturation patrols periodically where we are stopping these e-bikes on the trails, on our sidewalks because of the dangers that they pose and that there are some level of significant consequences. I do think you can change the behavior that way.
So I think Senator Hank, Councilmember Tran, one second. So I agree with that approach. I do think that maybe we do need to lobby on that. Just for the fact that 13, 14-year-old with something that's going 50 miles per hour, and I've seen them zip out in front, right? I know there's no mechanism there, but there needs to be a mechanism, especially in places that have a little bit denser population because it's a disaster waiting to happen. So I think the lobby takes a little bit while longer. We gotta build a coalition. All I get that, but I do think there needs to be, because there's nothing now. I agree with the approach that we're discussing, but I think there needs to be something a little bit more stringent because I'm just thinking of when I was 13, 14, 15 years old. You were giving me something that was going 50 miles per hour. You know, I got hit on a regular bike when I was like 13 or 14, right? So you give me something 50 miles per hour, I don't know if I'm the type that would have been here. So I do think there needs to be something more stringent, but I like that particular approach that was discussed. Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree that, the youth, the children, not just for their own safety, but also for the safety of the others who are being around them when they use the bike. They mostly forget about others when they enjoy, doing those activity, and they need to be parents and those youth who use the bike need to be reminded that even just the bike or the toys, but if the accident happens, then there are people who are being responsible for those being hurt. So I think it's good that the city staff can take up a way to educate the youth and the family about that.
Councilmember Harrison.
I know you did in the presentation mention lobbying the state. If, as we're developing this, maybe building on some ordinances, if you could also put together a couple paragraphs for our legislative agenda discussion later this year. And I actually do think that this is a pretty significant public health and public safety risk. I mean, kids are being reckless. And I mean, I've almost been taken out on a park trail by I think this person is probably old enough to know better, but leave that aside for now. I think it is a pretty significant risk to the community actually, and I think it might be worth if someone from your department could join us when the legislators are with us. That usually happens in January, just to sort of emphasize the importance of it. I would appreciate those tools.
Mayor Winston, Councilmember Erickson, absolutely agree, love to be part of the conversation, and we're not alone. I talk to chiefs all over. For most communities, this is the biggest issue that they're dealing with, is trying to address this. Residents are very concerned, kids are being hurt, so it is across the entire state for sure.
City Manager Strobel.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Winston, and members of council. Specific to the point about lobbying, we will definitely put this on our legislative agenda. I just want to point out that our Public Works Director, Culver, serves on a Metro Cities Committee around transportation, and he and I were texting here a moment ago, and this is one of those items that has become a priority for that committee, and certainly will be a legislative item for Metro Cities, and I assume League of Minnesota Cities as well.
All right. So I think you guys have kind of the input that you need from us going forward then.
Mayor Winston, what I heard was that come back with some proposals specifically around language around ordinance change that allows us to potentially seize the vehicle when they're being illegally driven in the city. And we'll figure out what else might be some options for council to consider what that ordinance might look like to give us some teeth, and then use that as a tool to be able to educate and hold those accountable that reoffend.
Okay. And then we'll follow up on the lobbying piece, and then we have Director Culver as well. So, all right, well, thank you. I appreciate it, and thank you for, I know we brought this up a few weeks ago, so thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
So quickly. All right, so next, we have council member reports and announcements.